I view any home as an investment, whether it's you live in it or you have tenants, as well as working with self-employed people, and of course, new to Canada, purchases, refinances, and renewals. And really enjoy looking at the numbers and analyzing that to help somebody understand what they can qualify for, both from a qualifying perspective and their budgeting. And I am originally from the United States. I've lived in Canada for quite a few years now, and all my children, my three children were born here. Canada is definitely my home. I probably will buy a home, possibly in California as a second home, but I have no plans of leaving Canada.
Very nice. That would be nice. Thanks so much, Gretchen. So as we move along, I just quickly wanted to share like the two, which I think are two main benefits of home ownership. And one is that it's one of the best ways to build equity in Canada. So over time, as you pay down your mortgage and your home value appreciates, your equity increases, and that can give you financial stability. And it could also potentially be reinvested. And another point to note is that when you sell your home, you don't have to pay capital gains tax on the profit you make due to price appreciation. So, I mean, this is the only area I know of where you don't get taxed in Canada on the profits that you make. But of course, you do have to keep in mind that you have to stay in that home for a minimum of 1 year. I think that's the requirement right now. Other than that, it gives you, I believe, a sense of stability that renting cannot match. For example, buildings constructed after November 2018, they don't have rent control. So the landlord can essentially increase your rent by any amount once a year. And you may have heard of these stories recently in the papers as well, but especially after COVID, where landlords increased rent way over and above the rent control limit. Since I myself had a client who was almost harassed and forced out, kind of with just this, the landlord continuously increasing rents. They had to move even though they did not want to. So, when you have a home, you have more control over your living space, and you can make changes and improvements as you want. So those are the two things. Also, when you're thinking about getting into the market to purchase, it's good to know what the market is doing at the time. And so I just wanted to give you a brief overview. So over the last couple of years, the demand has been fueled by population growth, which has come through immigration, and the supply has been limited. And this, coupled with really low interest rates, resulted in it being a seller's market. So the prices were higher, there were bidding wars going on, and there was limited inventory to choose from. So the government came in because the prices really peaked in early 2022, and they started trying to tweak this with higher interest rates. So now with the higher interest rates over time, the demand has decreased. So the inventory has been increasing for the last couple of months. And recent data actually suggested a shift towards a balanced to buyer's market. So what this means is that there are more houses to choose from if you're looking to buy. And there is a little bit of a reduction in multiple offers as some buyers are sitting it out for right now. And the prices are also lower than the early 2022 levels. So wanted to just share some numbers with you as well to give you an idea. So the interest rates have gone up if you look at it, but home prices have also decreased, right? So in this example, an average price of a home in Oshawa was over $1 million, and based on the last stats, it's under $1 million. So if you were going to put the same amount for down payment as you would have for $1 million home, your bi-weeklies have not really increased. In fact, they've decreased a little bit, right? And for those who couldn't afford a 20% down payment, or owning a home might be more attainable now. And that's because when the house is over $1 million, you're going to pay a minimum of 20% down. But now, since it's come down, it's under $1 million, you would actually just pay 5% on the first 500 and then 10% on the balance. So with the reduced prices, the it's some people it's easier, the affordability makes sense now to invest because you didn't have to have that much savings as you did earlier on. So moving ahead, so what this means is, like, real estate, just like any other investment, I believe is a long-term game. So over time, property values tend to rise, especially when interest rates begin to fall. So if you look at the market trends since 2009, you see occasional dips when the recession hit, but the overall trajectory has always been upwards and to the right. So honestly, in the end, it's more of a personal decision based on your motivation and reasons. But the best time to jump might not be, timing the market and seeing when the market is perfect, but, getting into the market so you don't get priced out and then building your equity over time. Yeah, makes sense. Great. So when you start thinking about buying, the journey can look a little confusing, especially if you're a first-time home buyer or you're new to Canada. There are lots of moving parts. You're thinking of financials, the different professionals like lawyers, inspectors, banks involved. There are a lot of sequential deadlines and dates that you need to meet and stay on top of them. So I wanted to break down the process and show you who you need and what the process would look like. So again, if this is your first purchase, getting your own realtor would be the first step. You will have lots of questions. You may not have enough connection to professionals, and a good realtor will be able to help identify your needs and recommend other professionals to you. I can refer you to tried and tested specialists like Gretchen here, and you can interview them and you can onboard them. So as you build your team, I think it's really important to interview them and get to know them so you're comfortable working with them. And once you have your team, then we can coordinate amongst each other to ensure that all aspects of the home buying process is moving forward in a timely manner and help you make informed decisions. So as your realtor, other than finding your home and preparing preparing the offer and whatnot, I'm also kind of like your project manager, making sure that everything moves along, right? So after that, I think the next most important step as you start the process is to find out how much you can afford. And it gives you a clarity on where you can buy and what type of home you can afford. And it also shows the seller that, you're serious about buying, like, you have the pre-approval, and that can help with the negotiation stage as well. So I will now pass it to Gretchen to talk more about this first step and walk you through the financing part.
Okay, thanks so much, Ayesha. Well, sorry, I'm just going to move my little windows here up top. Okay, so a pre-approval, all info is the best rate alternative. Okay, so the information I'm presenting today is based on trying to get you the best interest rate, whether it be with a bank, a credit union, or other alternative best rate lender. If you have a 20% down payment, we can do things a little differently. So, in addition to those types of lenders. So I'm not going to really get into that today, but just so you know, and as a mortgage broker, a broker works with a full range of lenders, from the banks, credit unions, to alternative lenders who will charge a little bit more, but can do different things outside of the bank box. And then we work with private as well. So we kind of do all the mortgage shopping for you, so that if you haven't worked with a broker, that's how we work. The things that the bank or any lender we work with are going to look at is your status in Canada, your credit, your income, down payment, debt ratios, and property. So I'm going to go through each one of those things. What we get is called a pre-approval. So what a pre-approval is it's an actual, usually a document that says your interest rate for this mortgage amount is going to be held for you, usually 120 days. So that's 4 months. And depending on who we work with as the lender, some of them will do a minor review. So they will actually confirm, they'll look at your, look at the credit, look at your documentation. and issue that document saying you're pre-approved, which you may need to make an offer. However, the things, they can't necessarily review everything, especially like the property. So that's why we recommend a condition of financing in your offer. And that's usually a 5 business day period where you can work with your mortgage agent and lender to make sure they look at all the full scenario before you waive that condition and be able to proceed. So if something happens in those 5 days where, oh wait, we didn't realize there maybe is a credit issue or an income issue, you can still back out of the deal and not have to, you get your deposit back. And it's really important to, before, when you have the pre-approval, before you make an offer, to discuss the property itself with your mortgage agent and your realtor, because if there's some sort of issue with the property that might be a problem, you want to deal with, know ahead of time before you make your offer. Next slide, please. So your status in Canada, you're required to have permanent residence or landed immigrant status or have a valid work permit. If you're a permanent resident, you have, that means minimum of 3 months full-time employment in Canada in order to, use that income and be considered. If you're non-permanent or temporary, you must, in addition to, you must have a work permit that's valid for 183 days and must have relocated to Canada within the last 5 years. And there's some exceptions to that, which are on the next slide. If you are purchasing with a spouse or partner who is they're a citizen, then, or permanent resident, then you do not necessarily have to meet that requirement of the 183-day work permit. If you sign an agreement before January of 2023, you can be exempt as well. And if you're a temporary resident buying in a smaller population area where they want more people to live, you also could be exempt from having to have that work permit. As far as your credit, and your down payment. So if you're buying with the minimum down, which is, if you're buying with between 5 and 10% down payment, it's called loan to value. Then we can get a Canadian or an international credit bureau. So if you're recently moved, you may not have much credit in Canada. So alternatively to that credit bureau, we can also get proof of rent payment being made on time with a letter from your landlord, bank statements. We can also get a utility payment with your name showing you've been making your utility payments on time, or some other type of bill. And as long as you've been paying on time, that suffices to help show you have good credit. If you have less than 10% down, then again, you'll get the Canadian or international credit report and can get a letter of reference from your financial institution from the country that you may have moved from, if it was within the last 6 months. And any letters from a bank from another country do have to be in English or French. Next slide, please. For income, so if your income is really same as how it's qualified for other people. So if you have guaranteed hours, they'll use the guaranteed hours, like just if you're hourly with guaranteed or salary. If you're not guaranteed hours, they'll look at the 2-year average of what you've been making. And also for part-time income, they'll use the 2-year average. And then there is a program if you have 20% down where they can use your bank statement income. Contract, it depends on the contract and the expiration date, how they're going to qualify it. But if you've had consistent contracts, then they will use that income just like they would for an hourly employee. And self-employed, again, is case by case because it depends on if you've been there 2 years or if you maybe you went from being an employee to being self-employed, but you're doing the same kind of work, then it doesn't necessarily have to be 2 years. Income from let's say you have a property now and you're going to buy another property, then the one you already have owned or the non-subject, they can use rental income on that. On a subject property, so the property you're purchasing, if let's say it has a legal second unit, which means it's self-contained and it has fire retrofit and separate entrance, all those sorts of things, then they'll use, depending on the lender, anywhere from 50 to 100% of that rental income to help you qualify for the mortgage. So a lot of people think, oh, maybe I'll buy that type of a property to get a bigger mortgage and also have a tenant. So it's a good, right now, it's actually a pretty good strategy too, with prices lower, because for a while their duplexes or 2-unit properties were quite expensive. They're a little more affordable now. The down payment can be as low as 5% of the first 500,000 and 10% of the remainder. And as Ayesha said, though, if your purchase price is over $1 million, then you do have to have 20% down. All Canadians do. The down payment has to be in your account for 90 days, or if you're using a line of credit from another property, you can do that. Or if you, let's say you sold a property or you're getting a gift. Now you can get a gift or partial gift. So let's say you have parents who are gifting you some funds. If the parents are not in this country, it still can be possible. Sometimes lenders want you to have some of your own funds. They might say that, you know, if you're putting down 10%, maybe 5% of your funds, 5% gifted. And then if it's coming from another country, we just have to get proof, like proof of the bank account there, proof of the money transfer, and then proof of it deposited into your account. But it is accepted. I've done ones with people bringing money from India and recently, and off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of any other, but it's done. It's not a problem. Next slide, please. Debt ratio. So what that means is they want to make sure that you are not spending more on the mortgage than you can afford. So the way they determine that is there's what's called the GDS, which is the gross debt service ratio, has to be a maximum of 39%, depending on your credit score. So what that means is if you take the property mortgage payment, taxes on the property, so your property tax and heat, divided by your gross income before tax income, cannot be more than 39%. If then you may also have like a loan. Let's say you have a car loan. So when they add that, that's what's called the TDS. That's your total debt service ratio. So the mortgage payment, taxes and heat, plus that payment on that debt, so say car loan or a student loan, divided by your income, cannot be more than 44%. They do what's called the stress test, which means that your interest rate, so let's say right now your interest rate is 5.99% on a 5-year insured mortgage. You have to qualify as if the rate was 7.99, so rate plus 2%. That's called the stress test. That's part of the government rules as well. And it does make it difficult when rates are high, when the stress test is applied, but that is the rule. If you're buying a property that's strictly rental, then they can look at something called your debt coverage ratio, and the cash flow of the property. So it's a little different when there's rental component. If your debt ratios are high, we can look at alternative lenders but you need to have 20% down to work with the alternative lenders. And the last component is the property. So the condition of the property is important. If it says on the listing as is, that's not always okay, because it could mean there's nothing wrong with the property, but the seller, maybe it's been taken back by the bank. Somebody's defaulted and now the bank owns it, and they don't really want to promise anything about it. So they may say as is. So if it says as is, it would be important for, Ayesha to help you look at why does it say that. And then if the lender isn't totally comfortable, and they may say, well, okay, well, let's have an appraisal done. And then we'll just make sure we're comfortable that there's nothing wrong, because banks and lenders do not want properties that need repair, or a lot of repair. They can have small repairs, but not major repairs, because if they have to take it over, they want to sell it tomorrow. They don't want to wait till it has to be fixed. If you want to use rental income, as I did briefly mention, the part of the property that you're going to use rental income has to be self-contained or a separate unit. If it's a basement, that's not maybe it's an in-law suite, but it's not really fully, like no kitchen, then, you can still buy it. You just can't use rental income to qualify for the mortgage. And another thing about the property, I mean, of course, this is Ayesha's specialty, to just make sure that you consider the needs of your family in terms of the property. So this isn't really a mortgage thing, but comment about needing to have certain things that meet your needs, especially too if you're going to try to have multiple generational. That the reason I put that picture, a lot of people are buying with multiple generations, so you just want to make sure you've considered, is there enough parking and all the things that multiple generations may require. That's it.
Oh, thank you, Gretchen. You kind of answered some of the things I was going to highlight in my next slide. So that's a perfect segue. So yeah, so once you have your pre-approval, and then comes the fun part. You can actually start looking, and one of the most important things to consider when buying a home is the location. So you want to choose a neighborhood that suits your lifestyles and meets your needs. So think about what's important to you. Do you want to be next to schools or work or your community? Do you want access to parks, or you want to be close to public transportation? So those are the things that you would think about. And also keep in mind that the location also affects, as Gretchen mentioned, appreciation over time. So sometimes a smaller home in a great location may appreciate more than your dream home in a not so great location. So what defines a good location? It's areas that are growing, areas that are close to public transportation, good schools, access to highways, so things like that. So make sure you do your research and visit different neighborhoods as well, to get a feel of what they have to offer. And also you can start thinking about the type of property you would be interested in, and start making a list of your must-haves, your nice-to-haves, or those deal breakers. So some of the main options you have in the GTA are detached homes, semi-detached, townhouses, and condos. Keep in mind, townhouses and condos may have maintenance fees attached to them as well. So again, a lot would, once you know what you can afford and you zone into your area, then you kind of know like what type of property you would be able to afford. And as Gretchen mentioned, a key factor is also to consider the age and condition of the home. So an older home may need a lot of renovations. We would want to make sure that we have a conditional offer so the home inspector can come and take a look. So you won't have that many surprises at the end, but any defects that are lying around. Some people like fixer-uppers, so if that's it's something you're interested in, then that might be something to consider. Or you're like not hands-on at all, not a handy person, then you may want something that's been renovated or relatively new. And also again, consider the layout of the house to suit your lifestyle and needs. Such as, whether you like open concepts, or, you want a more accessible home, a single story home, and things like that. And the other thing I just wanted to highlight was also, depending again on factors such as your budget, your ability to purchase right now, or, you need time to build your down payment. And also depending on the timelines of when you want to move, you may consider a resale home or a pre-construction. So resale homes are available immediately. And mostly it's like, 1 to 2 months from closing. Appreciation is at market rates. As I mentioned, condition can vary from a very old home to a relatively new home. And your deposit as well, once the closing, everything is done, everything is immediate, like, at time of offer and then at closing. Pre-construction, on the other hand, it may take 2 to 5 years to get the keys, and the appreciation could be from market rate to high. And I say that because sometimes if you get into a pre-construction in the first phase, generally developers say that, and generally you'll see a higher appreciation than if you were coming in the third phase, right? So those kind of things to keep in mind. Again, it's new. A lot of things can be customized with the developer, and you do have a Tyrian warranty for 7 years as well. And the deposit, especially in this market, is staggered, and some are even going up for 2 years. So like they have different deposit points. So again, once you know your wants and needs, and also your real estate agent can also help you explore all the options and help you make the right choices. We do have a checklist and a guide as well to help our clients narrow down their wants and needs. So if you're interested, drop your email and we will share it with you. And we can also set you up for a search based on your requirements, so you can get alerted real time. And a lot of times realtors may also have access to homes that, just because of the network with other agents, may know of homes that are not yet on the market or they're exclusive listings. So those things are as well something that your realtor will work with you once they know what your requirements are. So just to go over, here's a quick overview of the process again. And I know we've spent most of our time here because I think that's the important steps as you start your home buying journey. And of course, if you have a good team, the process should be transparent and easy to navigate. Once you found your home, your realtor will help you prepare the offer, negotiate on your behalf, also add in the conditions that you guys will discuss and think that are needed. And once the offer is accepted, we can start alerting all the parties to start their work, such as, the lawyers will start reviewing titles, status reports, and we'll have to make sure that all the conditions that we put in there are completed on time and coordinated with the, folks like home inspectors and, mortgage agents. Gretchen would, connect with the lender, appraisers if need be. So those are the things we can always help you guys with. And then of course the day comes and you get your keys and you're ready to move. And if you need movers and contractors, we can help you with that as well. So that kind of concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer. As I mentioned we do have a buyer's guide. We do have a questionnaire to help you get started. And we also have a cool, nice search engine, which is simple and interactive, and it shows information on homes. And also, if you're learning about the different neighborhoods, this is a nice place to go to as well, because it'll show you the neighborhoods, what are the amenities in there. It even gives you some stats on, age or income in that area and whatnot. So if you want to explore those, we'd be happy to send that to you as well. And then mortgage pre-approval tools that Gretchen can share with you.
Yeah, sorry. The pre-approval itself would be, we would actually get you that documentation that you can have that just confirms that your rate is held. And as I touched on, sometimes when you make an offer, the seller's realtor will require that you prove you have spoken to someone to have a mortgage pre-approval. So they're accepting offers that have been, you are buying within your price range.
If anybody has questions, let us know. If there are certain questions you have specific to your situation and you would want to book a one-on-one call with myself or Gretchen, we'd be happy to do that. No obligation, just to, get the conversation going and seeing wherever we can help you guys and add value.
Yeah. And I love, I can go through numbers with people during a call, and it probably takes about 45 minutes or so, and can usually by the end of the call, unless it's a complicated income situation, I tell you this is what you'll qualify for, and then decide if you want to get the pre-approval or not. And it's a lot of fun, and you can actually see on the screen. We usually do them online. You can kind of see the numbers, and I can explain the numbers and look at options. Like, well, if you didn't have this debt, then you could qualify for more, or whatever the situation may be. So you at least have a starting point to know, if maybe you're going to qualify now, or maybe you need a little bit more time, but you at least have a plan.
Exactly. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I don't see any questions. If
anybody have a question? Oh,
no. There's something in the chat.
Oh, you're very welcome, Tanya. She said it was wonderful, and it was so much useful information. So Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the nice feedback.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, again for your time. Really appreciate it, and all the best with your home buying. And maybe we'll connect.
We're gonna put in a little thank you. There we go. Yeah, I look forward to hearing from you guys as well, and answering any questions that come up.
Awesome. Thank you again, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ayesha. Thanks, Gretchen.